This is my review of Canon's EFS 10 to 18 millimeter lens. I've come out to Molly Stark State Park in southern Vermont. I'm sitting at the base of the Mount Olga Fire Tower. Really kind of a fun place to showcase the wide angle capturing abilities of a lens like this. And it is wide. So your kit lens, the widest it goes, 18 millimeters. This goes all the way to 10. And it may not sound like a big difference, that 8 millimeters difference, but it translates to a really big difference in your field of view. And 10 millimeters is quite wide. And we'll talk a little bit about distortion in just a second. But before we do that, let's get into the details of this lens and make sure we're all on the same page about the technologies in it. So it is an EFS lens. That means it's designed for your Canon's crop sensor cameras like the T4i, the T5i, and the 70D. It'll work on all of those lovely. It has image stabilization up to 4 stops, so that works nicely in trying to photograph static subjects in lower light. Will give you the ability to not worry about handshake as much. It has STM printed on the side of it, which means stepper motor technology, and that is that smooth, silent autofocus that can be paired with the T4i, the T5i, and the 70D for smooth, silent, continuous autofocus during video. This lens will still work just fine on T3Is and older cameras if you want, but you won't be able to get that continuous autofocus. That's a camera feature, not a lens feature. And that last set of numbers, f4.5 to 5.6, is of course the aperture range. And some of you have noticed that it really doesn't start too wide. f4.5 is not wide. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. But first, let me give you my early thoughts. I've been shooting now with this lens for about 3 days. I've had it over the weekend and been shooting pretty consistently through the weekend with it. For $299, I can say this. It costs $299, and I can say that it is a great value and a really fun way to explore wide-angle photography. But it may not be for everyone if you're considering a wide-angle lens, and we'll get that in just a second. Let me tell you what I love about this lens. Well, first off, the size and the weight. Yeah, it's got a plastic mount, but you know, that doesn't really bother me with these smaller, lighter lenses. We're not going to have problems. When it's a big, heavy lens that I know is going to be tweaking on the camera, then I want a metal mount. But something as small and as light as this really doesn't bother me that it's plastic. And it is small and it's light, and it's lovely to be able to throw in the bag and have that wide-angle view available to you if you want. The quality, the sharpness, the contrast, all very good. Chromatic aberration control is excellent. That is your purple kind of magenta fringing around your high contrast areas. You usually see that in cheaper lenses. I've shot a lot of really highly backlit subjects in the last couple of days just because I've been low to the ground shooting up at flowers and trees and bushes. And I've seen very little chromatic aberration in this. I've been really impressed. And just having a wide angle lens in your bag can be a lot of fun. So those are the upsides. The downside, I already touched on it, is you're starting at f4.5, and as soon as you zoom from 10, really, literally, as soon as you start to turn the dial, you lose that f4.5 and you're immediately at f5. So it's really only f4.5 at 10. Does it matter? Well, if you like, it may matter to you for 2 reasons. One, if you're finding yourself shooting in lower light environments often without a tripod, then this lens may not be the best lens for you. You do have that image stabilization, and with a wide angle lens, remember your shutter speed focal length rule. So 10 millimeters translates to 16 millimeters on a crop. That means to avoid handshake, your shutter speed when you're shooting with this lens should be at least 1/20th of a second. That's actually really slow. And then you put image stabilization up to 4 stops on that, and you can find yourself shooting comfortably, carefully, at very slow shutter speeds. So that low light doesn't matter too much as far as the aperture goes. Everybody follow me there? I switched that around a little bit. We were talking about aperture, but we're talking about the amount of light you're letting into this camera and the ability to shoot at those slower shutter speeds because it's a wide angle lens. So it doesn't matter as much. If you can throw it on a tripod, it doesn't matter as much. But if you really like to do the blurred backgrounds, it is much more difficult in this lens, and that's true of wider angles in general. The wider angle you're shooting at, the harder it is to get your really soft out of focus background. And when you are starting at f4.5, it is even more difficult. It's possible. Here's a sample image that I photographed. I was photographing as close to the foreground subject as I could, and at f4.5 I got a little bit of blur in the background, but not a lot. Would that keep me from recommending this lens? Well, if you really need low light capturing abilities and tripod isn't going to be the answer all the time, then you should consider something like Tokina's 11-16 f2.8. But we're talking about a lens that is almost twice the cost of this little guy right here, and bigger and heavier. I hope to have some comparisons up against that lens and against Canon's lens 10-22 f3.5 soon, within the next couple of weeks, to give you an idea. But I would have to say, if you are just curious about wide-angle photography, and especially if you want to do video work with that STM technology in here, this really is a lens that you should consider. I do want you to watch my focal length effects perspective video though, because I think a lot of people immediately think they're going to throw a wide-angle lens on and go out and capture beautiful scenics. There are some scenery that works lovely for wide angle, and then there's a lot that doesn't. I was shooting with some mountains in the distance the other day, Green Mountains in Vermont, and when you shoot with a very wide angle lens, it makes everything tiny, puny even. And so very quickly, what is a gorgeous mountainscape can look like little bumps or molehills off in the distance and not be very impressive. But if you wanted to get low to some water for some reflection, or really just capture an expansive sky, there are certainly instances and scenery that this lens would be great for. So those are some thoughts on the Canon 10-18mm lens. B&H is shipping it right now. There's a link right down below to that. If you found this kind of early thoughts / light review helpful, click the subscribe button right here, please. That is an easy and free way for you to support my work, and it helps. I'd also appreciate it if you come on over to the Facebook page and give that a like. I regularly post updates, tips, deals, all kinds of great information there, and it's a great place to get a hold of me if you have any questions about this lens, or you can leave a comment down below. Now, I said we were going to go up to the top of this fire tower and take a look with a couple different lenses, so if you want to stick around, let's go do that now. All right, so I'm at the top of the Mount Olga fire tower now, and I don't have a lot more to say about the Canon 10-18, but I do want to take a few moments and just kind of illustrate what I was talking about down below, in that not all scenics and scenery type photos benefit from being captured with a really wide angle lens. So I'm going to throw a bunch of different lenses onto, or actually just a couple different lenses onto the 70D and shoot at a bunch of different focal lengths, starting at 10 and working my way up to 200. And I'm going to let you all decide what you think looks best. Leave a comment down below with which one you think looks the best. If you've got any questions about the Canon 10-18, leave a comment down below, or come on over and find me on Facebook and post a message there. Post on the wall or a message, either of those works. If you've got questions about other wide-angle lenses that you think may be better for you than the Canon 10-18, certainly, I'm happy to talk about those, and I'll be making some comparisons against the Tokina 11-16 and the Canon 10-20 USM lens very soon. I have to say, I don't see a whole lot of reason to buy that more expensive Canon 10-22 right now. This $299 lens is a very viable option and a good value. So, please subscribe. I'd appreciate that. Let me know if you have questions. Thanks so much for watching.